Same question, different fonts. Can you sell your property in India without jumping on a flight? Short, simple answer is a yes. The long answer has a few plot twists. I'm Sanu Nair, founder and CEO of Fremita. For years, I've been helping NRIs turn Indian real estate headaches into real wealth without the chai pani bribes or airport sprints. And today, let's break this down in simple language. So let's take our first question. I work in IT and don't want to travel to India as I don't have the time. I invested in a property in Pune, but I've never visited it, only completed the paperwork. I don't know its current value and would like to sell it. So this is a common problem that we often hear our customers talk about. Now the point is that, do you have to travel to India to sell your property? The short, simple answer is a no. You don't. So the first thing that you would want to do is get the assessment done of your property in Pune and then start looking for potential buyers. And only then would you eventually start the negotiations with them. I live with my parents and don't have any blood relatives in India anymore. Since I don't want to travel, I am unsure who can I give this power of attorney and what is the process involved. So in an ideal case, we would have recommended some immediate family member of yours, a blood relative though. Now that could have been your parents, your siblings, or even your spouse who if wishes to travel to India for this transaction. However, in this scenario, you could possibly give the power of attorney to any third person. That could be your friend or relative or even your neighbor, anyone that you trust to give the power of attorney. But one thing to be careful about while giving the power of attorney to any extended family or friends is that this transaction of yours would now attract stamp duty. Now this stamp duty is on the final sale price of the property and could range from anywhere from 4 to 6%, a significant chunk, especially if the value of the property is much higher. For example, if the property is just for 25 lakh rupees, a 5% stamp duty will still be cheaper than your two-way flight to India. While if the property is for 2 crores, the same 5 or 6% could mean a lot more than your flight to India. Another thing is that you also want to be very careful with the kind of power of attorney you give. In most cases, we strongly recommend that you give a special power of attorney rather than a general power of attorney, wherein the person that you're assigning the power to has very restricted power to represent you in very specific situations. So we would recommend a SPA over a GPA and also be very careful of what will be the real cost of giving the power of attorney to any other person apart from your immediate family. I inherited ancestral land in Punjab in 2017 when it was transferred to my name by my late grandfather. I'd like to sell it, and while we've had some offers from brokers, I'm not sure how to trust them. This is a common question. A lot of our clients do not really have the time to travel to India, and more often they don't even know the real value of the property they want to sell. So our suggestion is that before we do anything else, we should get a proper verification and assessment of the property in question. This assessment is not just to ascertain the fair market value, but also to understand what would be the legal procedure needed to sell this property. This assessment is both of financial value as well as the legal aspect of the property. That is where we would want you to start with. We own an apartment in Bangalore that has been rented to the same tenants for the last 10 years. They've taken good care of the place and now want to buy it, but I suspect their offer is below market value. I don't know the actual worth of the property. So it's always a great place to be where your existing tenant wishes to buy your property in India. Why? Because there is trust. However, many a times what happens is that people, especially our customers who are trying to sell their property from 10,000 kilometers away, don't really know the fair market value of the property. So our first step that we would recommend is to get a professional assessment done of the property so that you know the real market value that you could expect had this property been sold out there in the market. Once that is done, once you know what that value is, you can choose to give your existing tenants a discount given the fact that you share a long, trusting relationship with them. However, how much discount you should give them is based on a lot of other negotiations that you would want to do. But yes, assessment is the first key step. I have an apartment in Mumbai when a friend of mine, also an NRI, wants to buy it as an investment? How should we handle the paperwork when both the buyer and the seller are NRI? So this is a unique situation where both the buyer and the seller are NRI. Now this one has to deal with it very carefully. Ideally, both these buyers and sellers should be working with the same team that specializes in NRI policies is crucial, because any NRI buyer or seller needs to realize that every aspect of this transaction will be very different than dealing with a resident Indian. Your legal, your taxation, your banking and your remittance compliances are all different from what it would be for a resident Indian. So our suggestion: find a team that understands cross-border compliances for both the buyer as well as the seller.